Hey, read it. I'm in a bad situation right now and could really use a pick-me-up and some good guidance to get back in the game. Let me put everything out for you. For the last 29 years of my life. Yeah, that's how long I can recall. My elder brother Zayn, who is only a year older than me and 29 years old, has always been the center of attention in our family. Everything seemed to be going his way. Zayn knew he was the beloved kid, and it got to his head, leading him to believe he was superior to everyone else, particularly me. He had this mindset that no matter what he did to me, my parents would simply look the other way and I would be the one in trouble. My parents clearly had a soft place for him, as he always seemed to get the best of everything. The only time someone pointed out this inequity was when our grandparents or other relatives noticed it and spoke out about it. So, what did my folks do? Instead of addressing the issue, they chose to gather our belongings and relocate us 150 kilometers away from our family. Their strategy was rather basic. If we just saw these relatives on holidays, they would not have to cope with the criticism. Meanwhile, Zayn was causing me a lot of problems at home. We're talking about him being physically cruel, and our parents did nothing to stop it. My father would dismiss it, saying things like, "Boys will be boys," and that I needed to toughen up. But it did not end there. When I eventually had a girlfriend, Zayn stepped on the charm and wouldn't quit flirting with her. He made her so uncomfortable that she chose to end things with me. I was furious, challenged Zayn, and even asked my parents for aid. But all they did was laugh and tell me I was being silly. Talk about feeling unsupported, add insult to injury. Whenever there were family trips, guess who was left behind? Yep, me. My parents would take Zayn and tell me they couldn't afford another ticket, or that they'd take me another time, but the next time seemed to never come. So hanging out with my grandparents was really rather enjoyable for me. I mean, I adored them. And then there's my brother Zayn. He always got what he wanted, regardless of the cost. It was like magic or something. Fast forward to when I reached 16 and I received my driver's license. It was a major issue since my brother, who is a year older than me, couldn't pass his driving test. It was as if he was cursed. Meanwhile, I was flipping burgers at McDonald's and saving little amounts of money. I decided to ask my parents if they might assist me acquire a second-hand automobile. I had planned to repay them over time like a tiny loan. But guess what? They said no. I was bummed out. Then, out of nowhere, my brother passed his driving test after who knows how many attempts, and my parents didn't even blink before getting him a vehicle. I was like, what just happened? I attempted to talk to them about it, hoping they'd realize how unjust it was. But all I got was that your brother needed it more than you did. When my 18th birthday rolled around, after much begging and pleading, parents eventually decided to buy me a car. But Zayn had to step in. He suddenly realized that his perfectly nice automobile was too old for him. So what did my folks do? They handed me Zayn's old automobile and went to get him a fresh new one. I won't deny it hurt, but at the same time I was relieved that I now have a car. Despite the fact that I often felt like I was second best. The only time I ever felt that my parents treated me the same as Zayn was when other family members were there for birthdays, Christmas, and other occasions. It seemed as if they were putting on a show, making sure everyone believed we were treated equally. It was strangely amusing to witness them try so hard not to exhibit partiality in front of their family. I have these family relatives, right? They're the sort who can't resist a juicy bit of gossip or prying into other people's affairs. It's like their favorite pastime. My parents have their favorites among the kids, but they try really hard to keep it a secret. They often urged me to be quiet about family matters whenever we had visitors. They even threatened to take away all of my electronics if I let anything go. Let's talk about pressure right now. When my elder brother graduated high school, it was as if he had won an Olympic gold medal. My folks were over the moon. They continued saying how proud they were of him, his grades, his future, you name it. They even organized a large party to celebrate, inviting a lot of people to show off his accomplishments. But let's go back to when it was my turn to graduate. My mother couldn't be bothered to arrive on time despite being at home. And my father, he didn't bother to show up at all. That evening, I was seated at supper, feeling depressed since they seemed unconcerned about my big day. When I brought it up, all they said was that graduating from high school was no big thing and that I should simply go on. Ouch, right? To add insult to injury, my brother Zayn, who was at university doing his thing, decided to kick me when I was down. He basically told me that I would never be able to compete with him and that it should be obvious by now that our parents did not truly love me. That night, I simply broke down and wept myself to sleep. It was at this moment of brutal reality that I understood that no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't make my parents view me the way I wanted them to. And that's when I decided it was enough. It was time to pack things and move away. You'd think they'd be upset about something, right? But nah. They appeared to be celebrating my departure as well. They were glad that they would no longer have to spend money on me. From then on, I was simply another relative, someone they would see around the holidays. There's nothing more. Meanwhile, I was hustling hard. I worked full-time and was able to attend college thanks to scholarships. And guess what? My parents did not give me any money. It was difficult, but it taught me a lot about standing on my own 2 feet and not relying on others' approval or support. So, imagine this. It's a special day for me because I recently graduated from college. But guess what? My family did not come to watch me graduate. They told me it was too far to travel and would take forever to go to college. Honestly, I wasn't upset by it. After college, I was really fortunate to get an excellent job in my hometown. The work was wonderful and paid well, which was quite amazing. Now let us discuss about Zayn. Zayn had a somewhat different story. He was enrolled at university too, but he was unable to complete his studies due to drinking difficulties. Instead of going to school, Zayn started doing day trading. It's similar to purchasing and selling items online in order to gain money. He was doing this with money that our parents provided him every month. At first, he was performing well and earning money, and he couldn't stop bragging about it. But then something horrible occurred. Zayn lost all of his money in one large, disastrous trade. You'd think our parents would be outraged, right? But instead, they told him it was a learning experience and urged him to get a normal career, something more stable. Zayn attempted a variety of professions, moving from one to the next until he found one that paid him, although not quite as much as mine. We don't chat much, Zayn and I, but whenever we see each other, like at Christmas, he always pretends to be doing better than me. He attempts to make it appear as if his decisions were the best, despite the fact that they were clearly incorrect. His work does not pay well, and he has had many ups and downs in his life, yet he still behaves as if everything is okay when he speaks to others. I don't let that worry me, however. I know I'm doing well since my income reflects that. Now let's continue the narrative. My father has a modest manufacturing business that he started from the ground up. A significant alteration occurred around 5 years ago. His manager, who was critical to the firm, abruptly quit because they received a better offer from another company. My parents were going through a tough time since my father was no longer as youthful as he once was, and operating the family business was proving more difficult for him. He had reached the point when doing everything on his own was no longer an option. But here's the kicker. He was quite cautious to introduce someone new into the mix. He didn't want to spend a lot of time teaching a newbie and bringing them up to speed just for them to leave after a few years, leaving us back where we started. So, in an unusual move for us, my father decided to assemble me and my brother for a lunch meeting. It was unique since we rarely sat down as a group of 3. I recall being astonished and fascinated when my father explicitly requested that I attend. As we gathered around the table, it became evident that my father was uninterested in small conversation. He got right to the heart of the subject. He lay it all out for us, explaining that our family business was in dire straits. My father was having trouble finding a suitable replacement when the longtime boss chose to depart, with the firm struggling and the possibility of bankruptcy growing by the day. The situation was terrible. My father was clearly in a difficult situation and required our assistance. He gazed at us as if he were quietly asking. I stayed silent, though. Part of me wanted to rush in and give my assistance right away. But I could see my father was looking for Zayn, my elder brother, to stand up. So I held back, waiting to see how Zayn would react. Zayn's response was startling, to say the least. He flatly rejected the offer, even ridiculing the prospect of joining our modest family firm. It was evident he thought it was beneath him, which just blew my head. Zayn, quote, "S apathy to our parents' troubles," and the future of the firm they had fought so hard to establish was obvious. Despite my father's repeated requests, Zayn remained steadfast. He stated that quitting his existing work for an unknown endeavor was just not an option. The sadness and anguish on my father's face were evident. It was difficult to watch, knowing how much this request for aid meant to him and having it discarded so lightly by my brother. I was completely floored, incredibly shocked. In my mind, Zayn was the obvious choice for my parents to take over the family business. They quote, "V always focused on Zayn, you know." But suddenly, out of nowhere, my stressed-out dad approaches me with puppy dog eyes full of optimism. He pours it on me, stating the firm is in trouble and he's terrified of the prospect of being locked up permanently. He quote saying, "I really need you now. I've been doing well for myself, generating excellent money, and since I'm flying alone, I've managed to save quite a bit." Deep down, I knew I could help them. Let me tell you, I felt like a complete idiot for considering jumping in after being kept out in the cold for so long. But after giving it some serious thought, something inside me couldn't bear the prospect of witnessing the family legacy go away. So I was like, okay, challenge accepted. I refused to let our family company fail. I chose not to merely dip my toes, but to swim headfirst into the deep end, putting up my money to breathe new life into the firm and lead it back on track. You won't believe how grateful my folks were. They wouldn't stop praising me. Now let's fast forward 5 years. I've gone all in, putting every ounce of effort into this enterprise. I'm talking about actually getting to know our consumers on a first-name basis, improving how people see our company from the outside, and bringing our online presence into the 21st century with a website that allows us to sell our products globally. I quote, "V been like a one-person army, streamlining our paperwork and procedures, striving for the gold standard of quality management with ISO 9001 ideals, and significantly boosting our game to ensure that what we create is top-notch without any snags. And it's not all about the big picture. I'm right there on the ground level, assisting others with packing boxes, sweeping floors, and lugging big items during rushes or whenever I have a break. Why not chip in and make everyone's lives a little simpler, right? But get this. While I've been beating my hump, my father has been pretty much me a tech. They're like, oil and water don't mix. He seldom shows up unless there is a large order or anything serious going on. So, while it's been a crazy trip, I'm glad to see the firm develop as a result of my hard work and dedication. Totally worth it. I felt like the superhero of our family business. It was working great since I was taking care of virtually everything. My parents noticed how well I handled situations and thought, wow, our kid is pretty awesome. I had a gut feeling that one day I'd be able to operate the firm. But well, I was not going to be greedy or anything. If my brother ever wanted to join us and help out, I would be fine with sharing it with him. During this period, my mother, father, and I got along much better than previously. They weren't selecting favorites anymore because they used to usually cheer for my brother. But I could see they genuinely appreciated me now. Guess what? My grandparents were also overjoyed for me for the first time. It seemed like my parents were treating me like a son, which made me really delighted. Then 3 years ago, something unexpected occurred. My brother Zayn unexpectedly announced to everyone that he was getting married. This was very unexpected because none of us knew he was even dating someone. Seriously. It turns out he had only met Donna a month prior, and they had planned to marry, super quick. This threw off alarms in my brain because they hardly know one another. I attempted to talk some reason into my brother, telling him that rushing into marriage when you don't know the person was a bad idea, but he didn't want to hear it. He essentially advised me to mind my own business and stop thinking I'm all that simply because I make more money than him. Following our chat, I resolved to keep out of his personal life. But once Zayn married Donna, things began to shift. Big time. Donna did not get along well with our parents. She believed they were too much to manage, and she didn't like how involved they were in my brother's life. So she began to cut them off, not returning their calls or texts. This was especially difficult for my mother since she was really close to Zayn, and not being able to communicate with him made her very sad. So for over 2 years, nobody knew where my brother Zayn had gone. He seemed to have vanished off the face of the world, and no one had heard from him since last year he casually showed up at home as if nothing had occurred. I didn't even realize he was back until something strange occurred to my father. My father was scheduled to attend a very important meeting, but he never showed up. I became concerned, so I contacted him to see what was going on. That's when he broke the news to me Zayn was back. Not just for a visit, but for good. I was very startled. My father then suggested we have a family supper since he had some important news to convey at dinner. I figured out why Zayn had gone. His wife, Donna, had cheated on him and left him for another man. Honestly, I wasn't shocked, because Donna always made more money than Zayn, knowing my brother. He has never been good at retaining a job for long. My parents appeared relieved that Zayn had returned, especially because he was getting divorced. Later that evening, things became more weirder. My father summoned me and Zayn into his office, shut the door, and looked me right in the eyes. Then he smacked me with something unexpected. He told me I should start looking for a new job since they no longer required me. Starting the next day, Zayn would take over my position. I stood there stunned, expecting for someone to declare it was all a joke. But then Zayn spoke out. He stated that he was ready to take over the family company and work with his father. My father just nodded, making it plain that he was serious. He no longer saw the necessity for me to be involved in the business. Now Zayn was back. I sat there, completely disoriented and puzzled. It really blew my mind that my father could throw me out of our family company like it was nothing. Here I was, the one who had quit my own work to assist him out with all the money I had accumulated. I looked directly at my father and asked, "Why can't Zayn and I both work here? It's a family affair, and I'm the one who has helped the company develop significantly." But then my brother Zayn simply laughed at what I said. He acted as if I was merely keeping his seat warm, as if the firm had always been his. He advised me to grow up and quit fussing. I did not back down, however. I reminded my father of how hard I worked to transform our losses into profits. It wasn't fair for him to simply kick me out, but my father wouldn't budge. He told me straight out that I was simply another employee and that he had the authority to terminate me if he chose. He even claimed he was attempting to rescue me from shame by not requiring me to work a notice period. He wanted me out, effective immediately. I'm feeling a bit desperate. I asked my mother whether she was aware of this. She hoped she might persuade my father, but he just consented, stating that this was also my mother's idea. They hoped that this would be a permanent solution for Zayn. I felt as though my heart had been torn out. It felt as if my family had just used me when they needed me, and now they were dismissing me as if I were nothing. When my favorite sibling returned home, I had a relaxed conversation with my father. I was like, "Look, I need the money back that I invested in our family company. It's time for me to try something new for myself." But that really irritated my father and brother. My brother was it. "How can you possibly ask Dad for money back? Do you recall how much our parents spent on you as a child?" Dad agreed and was like, "You choose to put your money into the business. You should be humiliated for even asking for it back then." My brother called me ungrateful and I simply couldn't take it anymore. I shouted, "You don't get it!" Growing up was difficult for me, constantly being compared to you, enduring your harsh words, and our parents plainly having favorites. I told them how hard I worked to keep our company from failing. And now they say I'm wrong to seek my own money back. Dad was furious when I yelled at my brother and said, "Do you think you deserve money? You're being ungrateful, and I'm not giving you anything." He even stated that he is cutting me out of the will because he believes I am greedy. He then instructed me to leave the home. Those remarks felt like a crushing blow. For the first time in ages, my heart was hurting. It stung to see my family still treating me like this. All of my ambitions of taking over the family business and claiming what I believed was rightly mine were dashed. My father was furious, and when he told me I couldn't have a share of our family's company or any of the money that should have been mine, it felt incredibly unjust. It was like a strike to the back. I attempted to remain calm and told him, "Fine, if that's how you want it, I'll do my own thing. Keep your business and all your money. I'll start from scratch and show everyone what I'm capable of. You will see. You were mistaken about me." But after expressing that, I didn't want to hear any more negative sentiments from them. I just left the house without looking back. They did not contact or text me after that. Later, my grandparents learned how my brother appeared unexpectedly after a lengthy absence and took over everything, as well as how my own family had forced me out. They were quite furious with my parents. However, it was already too late. 6 months had passed since I moved away from all the drama and stopped communicating with my family. It was a difficult beginning, feeling alone and having to figure everything out from scratch. It was difficult to know that my family did not want me around, but it also motivated me to succeed on my own terms. Finding a job was difficult at first. I was not used to working normal jobs because I was busy operating our family's company, which I was really rather excellent at. Then I got a great idea. I decided to approach our main competitors. I told them all about my accomplishment in managing and growing our family business. I believed I could utilize what I know to aid them while also getting revenge at my family. I was very surprised to learn that a couple firms were interested in me. I knew I had some abilities, but it was good to see that others noticed as well. I was asked to a number of interviews which felt similar to stepping on stage each time, but in a positive sense. Then one of these firms decided they liked me enough to give me a position. I was over the moon. It seemed like a fresh new chapter in my life was beginning, and I was eager to dive in and give it my best. This position was difficult, with many problems ahead of me, but I approached them with the same attitude as when I was working hard to preserve our family firm from sinking. I gradually, piece by piece, began to rebuild my life. It was like picking up jigsaw pieces and seeing the image come together. Without the continual stress and negativity of my family, I started feeling much better about myself. My employment was going well, and for the first time in a long time, I felt secure and content. It felt as if I'd been granted a second opportunity to discover my true potential, and everything appeared to be falling into place flawlessly. But suddenly, out of nowhere, my parents decided it was time to come back into my life, and this all happened last week. They began assaulting me with calls and messages incessantly. I ignored them at first, hoping they'd catch on, but they persisted, determined to reach me. So curiosity got the better of me, and I determined to find out what they wanted. After all of this stillness, when I eventually spoke with them, their voices were filled with fear, and they begged if I could assist them by paying their bills since their power had been turned off. I was astonished. Not a single. "How are you? We've missed you," let alone an apology for anything that had occurred. They went right to the ask, expecting me to pay their debts. I remained calm and hurled it back at them, suggesting they seek their successful son for assistance instead, and making it obvious that I did not want to be bothered by them again. At that time, my mother burst into tears over the phone, and they finally admitted how awful things had become. The family business, which had once been our pride and pleasure, was now on the verge of failure, close to bankruptcy. So, my father came to me with a huge dilemma. He claimed they truly needed my assistance. It became out that my parents had lost everything. All of this happened because they felt my brother was extremely financially savvy. He persuaded my parents to spend practically all of their savings and retirement funds on Bitcoin and day trading at the beginning of the year. They expected to make a lot of money and see their savings treble. However, the market plummeted, and they lost everything due to a large swindle. Furthermore, my brother was mismanaging our family business. He could not handle the workforce, and they all disliked him. He had no idea how to operate the firm, which was not unexpected given his poor management. When I learned about this, our family firm began to lose significant deals and clients. I couldn't help but feel a combination of melancholy and irony. For a long period, my parents mistreated me. They even booted me out of the family company and told me I wouldn't receive any of the family money. But now that everything has gone wrong, they expect me to assist them out. I reminded them of all the times they treated me poorly and how they never paid me back for the money I invested in the company to help it expand. I had worked hard to make the company profitable, even though they considered me as simply another employee. I was quite offended by their audacity in requesting my assistance at this time. I took a long breath to calm down, and then I told them the truth about how they preferred my brother over me and ignored my contributions. I made it obvious that I had not forgotten how they forced me out and that they shouldn't expect me to rush back to rescue them. My parents attempted to make me feel guilty, telling me that I owed them for caring for me when I was younger and that I needed to be a better son. But I held firm, reminding them of all I'd done for them and the company, no matter how they treated me. So I had a really serious conversation with them. I was like, listen, if you try to contact me again asking for help or anything, I'm going to take some major actions. I'm talking about having you repay every dime I've ever invested in your firm. And if it comes down to it, I could even force you to sell your home to settle matters. As you would expect, this did not go down well with them. My mother and father were furious, and we got into a heated argument. But no matter how much they shouted or attempted to make me feel bad, I refused to change my decision. I was like, no, I'm not going to help you out after everything that has happened. Feeling strong and advocating for myself was a game changer. It was difficult to believe, especially after so many years of poor care. My parents assumed I'd simply erased everything from my memory and ran to their side as they snapped their fingers. But after I terminated that conversation, I knew I'd made the proper decision for myself. However, that was only the beginning. Text messages and phone calls began to arrive on my phone. Not just from them, but from my brother and a few other relatives. They were all telling me that I was being too harsh on my parents and that I should simply let go of it and assist them. However, not everyone was against me. My grandparents were by my side. They've always known the score. I was a youngster once. I spent a lot of time with them because my parents were too busy doing their own thing and left me behind. My grandparents witnessed everything about my parents' interactions with me, even how they never performed their part. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster. Everyone now looks at me as if I'm the bad person for refusing to plunge in and save the day after how they've treated me. It, quote, as a difficult situation. But am I truly the villain here by choosing to keep my peace after all these years? Hello, everyone. First and foremost, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you. Seriously, your help and kindness at this difficult time have been fantastic. Every letter, remark, and word of support you've sent my way has been a lifeline to me. It, quote, difficult to express how much it means. But please know that from the bottom of my heart, I am really thankful. Let me give you the skinny on what's been going on, since it's been a bit of a roller coaster. My family has been going through a difficult period due to major troubles with our family company. What, quote, the twist? My brother was at the core of the troubles that caused the firm to struggle, but when my parents needed assistance, they didn't reveal what was truly going on. Instead, they constructed an image of my brother attempting to be the hero, jumping in to help during these difficult moments. Now, here's where things become even more difficult. I concluded I couldn't afford the expenses. They asked me to pay. So what did my folks do? They distorted the tale to make me the villain of the play, all to defend my brother's reputation. They opted to defend him and his reputation, even if it meant throwing me under the bus in front of the entire family. It felt like a betrayal to know they'd make up a narrative and leave me to take the heat in order to save him from shame. For a long time, I remained silent. I wondered whether it was just the way things had to be. But the more I thought about it, the more I sensed something wasn't right. I shouldn't have to take the responsibility for something I didn't do. After much thought and very profound chats with my grandparents, who have been my support throughout everything, I've decided it's time for a change. It is time to put the record straight. This weekend, I intend to have a heart-to-heart with my extended family. I'm going to tell my side of the tale, the true tale. I'm going to tell about how I was treated unfairly for years, how I was forced to leave the family business, and the unacknowledged financial assistance I provided to my parents' faltering firm. It is not going to be easy, but it is something I must do. For far too long, I've let others to determine my story, but now I'm taking control. I'm going to clear my name and speak the truth. I pledge to keep you all posted on how things progress. Your encouragement has given me the courage to take this step, and I cannot thank you enough for standing by my side through it all. Here, quote, hope for a better, more honest future. Thank you again, everyone. Your support means the world to me. Hey, you know how I've been trying to clear the air with my family regarding certain issues. I finally made a significant step toward it this morning. Let me break it down for you. I resolved to address the misunderstandings front on by writing a large email to all of my family. These were the people who had been contacting me, concerned why I appeared to be missing. In that email, I opened up about my parents' difficult situation. I went into detail about the difficulties I encountered while living with my parents. It wasn't easy, but I talked about how they didn't treat me well, how it was clear they had a favorite child, and how they eventually forced me out of the family company. Not only that, but they also denied me any inheritance, which was difficult to accept. I also revealed how much money I had personally invested in the family firm over the years. But when their golden kid chose to return, it was as if I no longer mattered. My parents did not hesitate before showing me the door, and they did not repay a single penny of the money I had invested. Laying all of this out was critical for me. I needed to ensure that everyone knew why I took the judgments I did. I believed it was only right that they heard my side of the story directly from me. And you know what? After pressing the submit button, I felt a sense of relaxation. It was as if I'd been lugging a massive rucksack full of boulders and was finally able to set it down. I have to be honest, I'm not sure how my relatives will respond. Some of them could agree with me, while others may not. But, ultimately, it is not what is most important to me. What important is that I was able to tell my truth. I needed to tell them the true reasons for my conduct. It was all about honesty and transparency. And now that I've finished it, I feel a lot lighter. Whether they believe me or not, I have spoken what I had to say. That in itself is a huge relief. Hello everyone, this is Wow. It's been 3 months since I gave you on my life. Time flies, right? I have some news to share, and it's actually very positive this time. So, remember the enormous email I wrote to all of our family a while ago? I didn't know what to anticipate, but something incredible happened. Quite a handful of them contacted me to apologize. They were utterly taken aback by what I'd had to go through because of my parents. It turns out they had no idea how serious the situation was. It was great to hear that they understood and were supportive, especially given how effectively my parents had hidden the truth from everyone else. Some of these relatives were so upset about what had occurred that they decided to address my parents immediately. I quote, am not privy to the contents of those talks. But it's evident my folks weren't pleased. My uncle on my parents' side attempted to contact me multiple times, blasting me with messages and accusing me of being juvenile and immature for airing our dirty linen in public. That was the final straw for me. I gave them one final mail to make my position crystal clear. I was entirely done with them. I even went so far as to suggest that I wouldn't worry about them not having a place to sleep. I further informed them that if they did not follow my request for no contact, I would not hesitate to seek legal action. After I blocked them, they haven't had the confidence or possibly the audacity to contact me again. And the stillness has been heavenly. On a lighter side, there has been some great movement in other aspects of my life. My employment is going well, and I'm usually pleased with how things are progressing. I've also made a huge step toward recovery by beginning treatment. It's been quite beneficial in dealing with the residual effects of my previous encounters. This entire process of healing and moving ahead has been made much simpler because to the great support system I've discovered not only in therapy, but in other areas of my life. I make it a point to see my grandparents as frequently as my job schedule permits. They've been my rock throughout this. To me, this is the actual definition of family. I want to thank everyone for being there for me. Your words of encouragement and support have all been crucial in guiding me along this route to a better, happier life. Here's to continuing this healing path, finding joy in the simple things, and moving forward together towards brighter days.